All right, script of the week. I've got 2 scripts for you this morning. I told you I was going to do a script every week, but I've got 2 for you this morning. This is how to explain the 2-1 temporary rate buy down to your seller. And obviously, script number 2 is going to be how do you explain it to the buyer. So when you're talking to the seller, you might say something like, you want to attract the most buyers to your home, and offering a 2-1 temporary rate buy down is a great way to make it more affordable by lowering the buyer's rate and payment in the first 2 years. So the way it works is in the first year, their interest rate is 2% lower, significantly lowering their payment, like reducing the price by 20% for that year. In the second year, their interest rate is 1% lower, keeping their payment smaller, like reducing the price about 10% for that year. And then by the third year, their payment adjusts to the normal rate, whatever the note rate is. Okay? The buy down costs about 2% of the purchase price, which you provide as a seller credit at closing. This one-time cost reduces the buyer's rate and payment for the first 2 years, helping offset higher interest rates and making your home more appealing. Plus, if rates drop, the buyer can refinance to extend the savings even further. So, simple way to explain it. Hopefully you understand it. If you don't, then reach out to Tom or come and see me, and I'll help you understand it even further. But just another tool, another something in your quiver for you to be able to talk to a seller who maybe is kind of lingering on the market, looking to maybe generate a little bit of additional interest. So how do you explain it to a buyer? So you're talking to your buyer, and they're really rate sensitive, and they're worried about payment. You might say something like this. The loan has a fixed rate for 30 years, giving long-term stability. For the first 2 years, the payments are lower because the seller helps cover part of the payment. The idea is that the rates might drop in those 2 years, so the buyer could refinance at a lower rate and save more over time. If refinancing doesn't happen, the buyer still has the original fixed rate as a backup, so there's no risk of payments increasing. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
Are you obligated to keep that 2-1 buy down, Tommy, for the 2 years, or can you refi anytime?
It's a great question. You can refi anytime. There's no prepayment, but I have to check to see if they lose. It's called a seller. The seller can only pay it, by the way, a seller or a builder. But that's called a subsidy. They're subsidizing the mortgage payment. I have to check and see if that subsidy goes away if it's refinanced in the first 2 years. And Steve, in his experience, thinks that subsidy would go away. So that's why I have to confirm.
Yeah. So the answer is there's no penalty. In other words, you're not locked into that loan for 2 years. But if you were to refinance it, I think you're probably going to lose the prepaid interest that has been paid. In other words, that's not coming back to you.